Bittensor ticker symbol TAO is an altcoin you need to know about right now, which could be the missing piece of the paramount artificial intelligence narrative that will surely be among the most explosive next cycle. In fact, if someone were to tell me that Bittensor was their biggest AI bet, I wouldn't even be surprised. Which, as we'll explore later in this video, is actually the case for many people, with some pretty outrageous price predictions and talking thousands of dollars. So stick around to see the logic behind that. But first, let's discuss what Bittensor is and why it's an altcoin you absolutely must have on your radar right now, considering how we could truly be on the cusp of entering the next bull market. Bittensor is a decentralized AI ecosystem crypto project having launched just earlier this year in March, giving it that huge edge of still needing to undergo its first bull market and price discovery range. And speaking of which, it pretty much just hit its all-time high at $100 during the making of this video. So we could even see it get into price discovery sooner than we think, which is why I'm coming out with this video now before such happens. It sits at a market cap of $400 million, which even at all-time highs, all things considered, is not too out of hand, especially relative to the price points of where this thing could get. I'll put it like this: if I didn't own any Bittensor, and it was a project I liked a lot after doing my research, I wouldn't mind at all getting in at a $400 million market cap just to get that initial entry when looking at it from a long-term time horizon. The focal point of Bittensor is to be the decentralized network through which AI models and computational assets can be distributed and received. In other words, the exchange of information, the sharing of computation. So things like distributed computing, distributed data processing, and the real killer use case being distributed artificial intelligence and machine learning. The key approach through which Bittensor tackles this from actually has a lot to do with Bitcoin, where the founder Jacob Robert Steves himself has stated that he is a Bitcoin believer and even maximalist. His thesis was that once artificial intelligence gets going, it will need a lot of computational power, which at this current moment is still one of the biggest concerns going forward. How exactly will AI receive the computation it requires? And what Jacob realized is that with Bitcoin, even though the end goal for us degens at least is to receive that beautiful orange coin, what the process of Bitcoin mining and how complex it is has basically done is create the greatest supercomputer we've ever seen. And Jacob said, well, what if we leverage the attributes this supercomputer approach can create, and use that to carry the computational resource burden artificial intelligence will need? And thus came the genesis of Bittensor, whose mining and tokenomics are very similar to that of Bitcoin's. Like with being capped at a max supply of 21 million, for example, with the same mining and having mechanisms where every 10.5 million blocks the rewards are cut in half, just like BTC. Except this time what's different from Bitcoin is that the computation being generated is actually being harnessed for the case of artificial intelligence processing. Unlike with Bitcoin, where it's really just wasted in seek of that orange coin. Where for Bitcoin it's obviously okay as it plays into the hypothesis of monetary value. But Bittensor needs that power for AI. And also with Bitcoin, it's not that one Bitcoin is worth 35,000 US dollars like it is now. It's that Bitcoin as a monetary asset sort of represents this self-governance, self-money type of thing. How you may hear many say one Bitcoin is worth one Bitcoin and the flawed fiat we've pegged it against for the time being is futile in the long run. Well, Bittensor also has this exact same approach, where it's not just that Bittensor gives artificial intelligence computational power, but does so in a truly decentralized way. And as a crypto community, we've obviously done a horrendous job by spamming the word decentralized, watering down what it means, throwing it along with every crypto coin you see. But in the long run, it just doesn't make sense for something like artificial intelligence to be run through centralized intermediaries, through entities like Google or Amazon. Healthy AI can only run through decentralized parties, and it truly does seem that as of right now, Bittensor is leading this race. As remember, projects like Filecoin and Arweave are targeting data storage, and others like Render are leading GPUs. In fact, OpenAI named themselves exactly with this idea, being open-sourced AI. But it never turned out that way. There's nothing open about them. But once again, this is where Bittensor comes in, and it becomes quite overwhelming when you really think about what they're aiming for here. But that's exactly what this space is about. And fortunately for us, we're here quite early before any of this transpires. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as there'll be plenty more content like this on the way. I'll soon be making a video on my AI crypto portfolio, that's one you don't want to miss. But with the mission of Bittensor out the way, how does the TAO token come into play? Well, the native currency would obviously be what is used to reward miners for their computational power, and on the other end the ticket access for those seeking the prowess that Bittensor provides. as those who wish to use the AI services of Bittensor must use TAO, and is also needed by developers to train their machine learning models on the Bittensor network, for example, as well as governance and such, so the token is integrated quite decently within the Bittensor domain. So we know what the project is, and how the token has good value accrual, great tokenomics, and is primed for price discovery in its first bull market. But perhaps what's most exciting about Bittensor is the ecstatic community it's built behind it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go on crypto Twitter and search up Bittensor, the conviction is not many other crypto projects can replicate. For instance, Eric Voorhees, the guy who absolutely dismantled SBF on Bankless, states how decentralizing AI is approaching the importance of decentralizing money in response to a scary post below. Well, what did we mention for the majority of this video? Bittensor is trying to do exactly that. And if you go through the replies, everyone keeps shilling Bittensor over and over again, and how he should look into it. One of them being Algo Trading, the guy who got destroyed by Do Kwon but ultimately got the last laugh. He's become a Bittensor shill and bull heading into the next cycle, where he claims it'll be the best performing asset of the next bull run. And if you think that's crazy, he literally converted all his ETH into TAO. Yes, you heard that right. You also got this guy saying the same thing, saying TAO will even surpass ETH, which I mean, come on, but I admire the thought process. The head of research at Uphold has a similar vision, saying many existing chains will become Bittensor subnets, meaning we do have some notable figures who've got their eyes on TAO. What I also like about Bittensor, which also has to do with the community, is the conflict it's been getting into with Render Network fans on again places like crypto Twitter. For those who don't know, Render is also one of the major vehicles in this crypto artificial intelligence infrastructure realm, and the two communities have been going at it, and that too quite viciously, as a matter of fact. But regardless of whose side you're on, as I myself have disclosed my appeal of Render on this channel multiple times, these battles are good because it creates attention and teams, which a lot of the time ends up with number go up. I tweeted exactly this. Make sure to be following me at Pain of Crypto. But for me, I play both sides. I like both these projects. Both highlight my AI portfolio. I don't care who beats who at the end. All I know is once I make that 10, 20, 50x, I'm making big bucks regardless. But speaking of big bucks, let's get to what you've been waiting for. Where does Bittensor get to in terms of price? Look, I'll say it again, my conviction in this AI sector is extremely high. Along with crypto gaming, I just think if you have any type of exposure in this, you'll make the most gains. The AI portfolio video will be coming soon. We'll get into more detail about that. But with Bittensor, I just don't see how this thing doesn't at least hit $1,000 the next bull market. Obviously nothing is guaranteed, but I'll put it like this. The way I'm approaching this is that 4 digits is a lock. If that does happen, we'll be looking at a $4 billion market cap, which is not asking for much relative to other projects. And if you think my conviction is strong, going back to Algo, he thinks 10 to 20 billion is on the table, which would put Bittensor at $2,500 to $5,000 a coin, or a 25 to 50x. With his logic being that AI will be the next layer ones, which all got billions and billions of dollars last cycle, like with Solana and Avalanche Terra Luna. So a similar mindset to mine, but I'll keep it a bit more conservative and say let's look for 5 billion and look from there. Smash that like and subscribe button for more content like this. If you made it this far, you clearly want it. Sign up to a crypto exchange link below for big bonuses and cheap fees, as it also helps support the content. And I'll catch you legends in the next one.